Hi everyone and welcome again to this Python course. Okay, so we've learned a bit about how to convert elements back and forth from each data type. So these first sections that we are dealing right here are looking at the surface of the most important concepts and basics of the Python language. They are probably one of the concepts that we need to understand before we move to more complex stuff. And that's why this section contains, or at least so many different themes, such as conversions, comparisons, and variables, because these three components are super relevant to learn everything around Python, combined with the atomic data types and other objects that we'll learn forward. But to build, and I think our goal in this course is to build good Python functions and good Python programs, then we need to understand this really well. That's why we are starting here. So one of the central concepts of all programming languages are variables, and how can we store certain type of data inside a specific name or a variable name that we can use to pick up that element. So I'm going to delete everything that we have right here again from our workbook and have here variables. Okay, cool. And now we are going to work on these two variables. Okay, this is the notebook that we will follow. Okay, so let's imagine that I would like to do something with the following number. I've wrote a really big number before, but now I'm going to write this simple one, which is 2109034. So 2,109,034. I would like to do something with this number that I'm now storing in a string. For example, I may want to convert it and store it in a variable or something like that. I may want to do something with this string that we see right here. Imagine that I would, two operations, convert it to int and multiply it by 2, and then I would also like to do the same. So 2095034, converting to int, but in this case I would like to apply the ABS function on it. It will yield the same, but I would like to do these two operations. Notice that I have to type this number twice, right? Wouldn't it be great if I had a name to pick up this variable from? It would. So that's what a variable is. So variables are just names that we have on Python that store data, in this case Python objects that we have. Either strings, either integers, either floats, booleans, and other elements that we'll learn a bit on next sections of the course. So this is super interesting because we would like to have an easy name to pick up this data from. How can I do that? Well, this is super simple. I'm going to even open here a new cell and write here the number and just do the following, which is my number. I'm going to call it my number, although it's in quotes because I'm doing something with it, equal this number. That's it. If I write this cell, I now have this number stored in my number. That means that if I go here and do int my number times 2, I'll get exactly the same return. And if I go here and do abs integer times 2 or abs integer my number, I'll get this number. Because right now, if I do even here print my number, I'll have this number stored. Instead of typing every time the same number, which is error prone, of course, I may do something that's not supposed. I may switch some of the numbers. And even when we do more complex programs, you will see that we'll want to do several steps and we need to have certain states to save variables. This is what we use, is a variable, a Python variable, where we can write things into variables. So if you are coming from other programming languages such as C, you'll notice that there's no type. We don't need to declare the type of the variable. For example, in other programming languages, I may have to state that this will be a string variable. And that's something that Python doesn't have, because Python is dynamically typed in terms of the variables. When I assign some variable to a name, the name will reference this object. But if I change the object, for example, if I go here and do my number is equal to 2, Python will substitute the underlying element, no longer reference a string, which is something that's not possible, for example, in C, and reference a completely different object with integer, another data type, and another completely different data type. So as Python names are dynamically typed, this is what we call dynamic reference here in Python, or at least how Python treats the types of the variables. We can substitute the variable with other data types as we want, because the variable is assigned in the moment that we create the variable. And if we create the same variable with a new name, that's okay. That variable is completely substituted. The underlying reference that name, my number, gives is completely substituted by another number. If you don't come from other programming languages, don't worry, because this is something that's even easier in Python than other programming languages. Just doing this parallel right here for someone that comes from other programming languages that need you to declare variables before creating them, something that Python doesn't need. That's even easier for beginners to understand. So now my number here, I know that my number will be 2. This is a Python variable. It is a name that contains some underlying object with an underlying data type, and it's the same. Calling my number and calling 2 is exactly the same throughout our code. Okay, if I want to do something with this 2, I can convert this my number to str, for example, and this will convert the element. I can do everything that we've learned so far just by picking up this my number. This is extremely interesting. Of course, it doesn't need to be called my number. I can call, I don't know, banana. Banana will be a string with this is something. Now, every time I call banana, if I print banana here, I'll have as a return the underlying object that I've saved. This is something, a string saying this is something. So this is how we assign variables in Python. Just using an equal, we pick up an object, assign it to a name, and then later we can use that name and reference it anywhere in our code, or at least in this notebook. That's important, because if you open another notebook and without using some more advanced Python stuff, you can call this variable in there. Okay, so in this notebook I can access this banana everywhere. So let me just do something really stupid, which is adding a lot of cells here in this Jupyter notebook. Calling banana right here, printing banana here. I have here the variable. So the variable is stored in the environment, in my Python underlying environment, okay? While I keep this Python notebook running, this variable will be accessible. Now, something important, if I go here, kernel, and for example, restart my kernel, meaning that Python will tear down all my Python environment and up it again, okay? So from scratch, the my number, or the banana, let's use the banana here, the banana is no longer stored in the environment because I didn't run that code when I restarted the environment. Okay, if I go for banana now, banana is not defined. Python really doesn't know what banana means. So I need to run the banana, this is something, I need to run it, so that the variable is now reassigned in my environment, so that Python knows, okay, I've seen that you are assigning this string, this is something, to this name banana, and now I know what banana means. Okay, and now I can do print banana and use banana, the variable banana, back and forth. Just know, when you close a Python notebook, when you close an environment in Python, you no longer can access that object until you assign it again. When we say assigning variables, we mean running this code banana equals something, because it's when you run this code that Python will know I need to treat every time the user, every time someone that is coding me, let's say it in this way, means and calls banana, I know that I must be picking up this string. Of course, if we tear down Python, open the notebook again, then this reference will be lost and we need to run it again so that Python understands what this means. This doesn't happen, of course, with other names that we have, for example, names of functions, of the ABS, of the str. These names, these functions in itself will be, Python knows what this means as soon as we open the notebook because they are in the base Python. The variable banana, it's not, it's custom made by us for our code alone. Okay, just be wary of that. Okay, full introduction on Python variables and the really important concept here in Python. So play around with these variables. We'll still continue with more examples next, but before we move on, in your environment, type in some variables, type in some different data types, call some functions on those variables, and see how you can work around with these names and see if you can really understand what the impact of us using variables. You'll see that throughout the rest of the course, I'll mostly use variables to teach, and I'll mostly use variables because this is really important here. So next we are going to see something cool, which is we can create even variables based on other variables, which is something really interesting. I'll see you there.